Record the and folks, welcome to another episode of the Mañana morning check-in. I am actually going live here on LinkedIn instead of doing the recording. I'm just going to go ahead and do it live, kind of see how this goes. This will be the first time that I've done this, doing it this way. I've already got a warning here coming up through the LinkedIn interface, so I don't know. We'll see what this says. But in any case, I'm going to hope that it's working here, and I am recording it. So, what a week we're up to. It's Monday, and you guys know I generally pretty much always love these Mondays. It's April 4th, and I'm looking at stuff. You know what this is like? Maybe you do the same thing. You know, you own a business, you manage a business, you're working on something that is important. That's something that has priority, and then you find yourself looking at other things all the time, things that end up being a distraction. Well, I talked about distractions last week, and so when I talked about distractions last week, I told you guys that I had factory data reset my Android phone, and when it says, hey, would you like to do a backup restore of all your apps and features and accounts and all of that, I simply said skip. I just didn't want it in there. The last month or so that I have been making live content or making training videos or things for the Mañana projects, it would bing, buzz, boop, bing, bzz, just constant. And I thought to myself, I'm working on something that's important. I'm working on something that deserves my attention. As in, I'm creating a product that one of my clients or customers is going to view, and it deserves my full attention. So I'm not giving it my full attention if the phone is doing all kinds of weird stuff. Not only that, but I was looking in my own living room, and this is going to be a transparent look here. I was looking in my own living room, and I was watching my wife on her phone and my daughter on her phone and my son in another room on his phone. And I thought, we need to spend time together. Like, just because we're sitting in the same room together doesn't mean we're together. We need to spend time together. And that's not going to happen unless we turn these idiot boxes off. I can remember my dad used to call the TV the idiot box. I'm going to throw that idiot box out in the street, and we would laugh, whatever, this dude's such a moron. He's not going to throw the TV in the street. And there's times where I just want to take all the phones that are in my house and just chuck them in a wood chipper and say, I'm done with this. But oddly enough, just like my own father, we all have a phone. So the wood chipper has not been fired up as of yet. Now, as I am looking around at things and looking back, in fact, I think what I put in the title to this video on LinkedIn, on the live side of it, was looking back on my own feed. Looking back on my own feed. And then I think the description that I'd put in there was something along the lines of, the cool thing about the internet is the record keeping. And I got to be careful the way I say it, because I don't want to make it sound like it's too much of this. But at the beginning of COVID, I went live. I put things in print. I put blog posts out that are time-stamped, that are saying things basically like the way the whole pandemic kind of worked out. And so I was pretty direct on some of that, but I was also direct on some business stuff. And on that business stuff, like, a lot of the customers I deal with are in the power sports industry. They own motorcycle dealerships. So whether they own motorcycle dealerships or bicycle shops or marinas, things like, in the marine atmosphere, I mean, not the military, but marine, like boats. And so, boats, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, bicycles, mountain bikes, e-bikes. I mean, just go down the list of all those toys. And I am somewhat involved in those industries. And so I had said as early as March of 2020, your sales are going to go up. Now, my motivation for that was, right, try and remember your mindset back in March of 2020. People were starting to freak out. Now, I live in California, so people were really starting to kind of go a little crazy. And they were saying things like, you can social distance, anything that's travel related is an essential business. you need to be masked if you're in proximity of other people, all of these things. Now, in my mind, when they said social distancing was cool, and I heard that motorcycles were considered essential businesses, motorcycle dealerships, immediately I thought, well, their business is going to go through the roof. They're going to run out of inventory. I immediately went to, they're going to run out of inventory. Now, why would I say that? Well, I said that because I used to work for Ducati. I used to work for Suzuki. I knew what the inventory levels were at different warehouses. I mean, not exactly, but I knew kind of, what they have in stock. And I knew that and bear with me on this, if you ride a motorcycle, if you have never ridden a motorcycle, you might not understand what I'm about to say, but this never stopped being cool. Twisting the throttle on a motorcycle never stopped being cool. Other things involved with motorcycling stopped being cool when we start talking about like the nuclear family, or a man, I'm going to say it, a man taking time for himself away from family to go get a little inner peace and ride his motorcycle. That became something that was considered selfish. That became something that was toxic masculinity. That was something that society was beginning to really deem a non-essential. Okay, so UTV sales were going through the roof. Now, if you remember this pre-COVID, motorcycles were all over the place, 2-3 year leftovers sitting on a showroom floor somewhere, but you had to wait in line to buy a UTV. Why would you have to wait in line to buy a UTV? Because it's a family thing. People that buy a UTV with 4 seats in it, guess what? They get, that's a married and 2 kids. And so then you get the truck, and you get the RV, and you get the trailer, and all this stuff to go take family vacations out in the desert or in the woods or wherever you live close to with your UTV. And you go out and you tear the thing up for the weekend, you break it, and you take it to the shop on Tuesday. But that was, so if we go to changing the dynamic at the beginning of the pandemic, it was social distancing is okay. Social distancing is the responsible thing to do. And so what's the most fun way to social distance? Right? This never was uncool. Whoever got us to believe somehow that this was not cool, kudos to them. That was a great marketing campaign. I never fell for it. Had a garage full of motorcycles the whole time, just so you know. But I forecasted in print, again, in blogs, that I knew sales were going to go up in that category. I also knew inventory was going to be a problem. So if you go back and you read the things that I posted back in March of 2020, I was giving out messages like, if you're in sales, make sure you guard your margins, make sure you protect your inventory, you get what it's worth, because supply is going to be an issue. I wasn't using terms, I don't think necessarily like supply chain, or, I wasn't foreseeing 100 ships sitting off the coast of California waiting to get into the port. I wasn't seeing it that way. But what I was seeing was, I knew there'd be an increase of demand at the dealer level. And I knew that what was currently at the warehouses wouldn't support that demand. That's all I knew. Okay. But when I take a look at that material, I look at that and I go, okay, I was on the money. You know what the other part of that conversation was? The other part of that conversation I was having with dealers was, so now's the time to train your service department. It's been 2 years. What happened? They sold out of their inventory. Those that didn't read my posts or didn't take me seriously did not protect their margins. They did not make as much profit as they could have made in the front end of their store. Now, inventory is an issue. It's hard for them to get the product that they need to keep up with the demand, and they didn't train their service departments very well. So the experience that these new customers got, right? We have a lot of people that are new to the sport now. They're coming to power sports. They don't get the best of experiences out of their sales department. They don't get passed down correctly from sales to service. And you know what? These dealerships really need to have some kind of customer retention plan in place. They need to make sure they get the first service. Report after report after report says that if a customer does their first service with the dealership's service department, they have so much more percentage of getting the ongoing business from the customer. If the customer does not come back to the dealership for their first service, chances are they will never return to that dealer again. Boom, done. So how many people heeded my advice? I can tell you from the sales numbers in the Power Sport Academy, from my perspective, it's not many. And this isn't meant to shame people. It's meant to just remind people that the Power Sport Academy is here. And not only is it here, but we just added a free course, Getting Started in Service. So Getting Started in Service is really meant to help dealers start to get up to speed a little bit from a service perspective. A lot of dealer owners think that their service writers and service managers are operating at this level. They're not. A lot of them are operating down here. Some of them don't even answer the phone effectively. I mean, if you actually hung around in the department and listened and watched them do their job for a couple of days, if you were the owner of that dealership, you'd probably be like, oh, I got to get this guy some training. Actually, you probably wouldn't say that. If you were a dealer owner, you would probably say, I got to get rid of this guy and I have to find his replacement. I got to start looking for that person's replacement, her replacement. I got to start looking for that girl's replacement, instead of thinking, I need to invest in this person and train them up to the level that I need them to be. I go to this a lot. If you liked an individual enough to hire them and to give them the opportunity to work with you, and they have been keeping the place from burning down for the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you notice through my prodding that they're not horribly efficient, productive, or profitable at their job, that doesn't mean fire them. Invest in them. If someone was a realtor, they'd be taking annual training to keep their realtor's license. If they were doing mortgages, same thing. If they were a dentist, if they were a doctor, if they were, look at your technicians. Your technicians have update training coming from the manufacturers on fairly a consistent basis now. It used to be just one time of the year, but now it's whenever a new model's released, there's some kind of update training that's got to be done for technicians. It's the same for service writers. Service writers need to be invested in. They have to be taught proper communication and leadership tools so that they can help elevate the culture in the back end of your store, reduce employee turnover, help customer relationships, and in turn, increase efficiency, productivity, and sales, which drives profit. I've been talking about this for a long time. It's not old, okay? But a couple of the things that I looked at when I was looking at those old posts were things that I would say emphatically 2 years ago. So one was, I knew it was going to happen with power sports. The other thing was, I would tell folks, this is a time of challenge. This is a time of obstacles. And I said, we have to look for the opportunities within the obstacles. We need to find the silver lining on this cloud. We need to, and I kept saying, we. I was talking to you as much as I was talking to me. I was talking to everybody, holding myself accountable. We need to find opportunities within the obstacles. I must have driven that home a solid year on daily YouTube videos, but I honestly meant it. And when I say opportunities within the obstacles, I mean just that. Look at how many people were able to find a way to pay their bills through unemployment, underemployment, layoffs. All kinds of stuff happened during the pandemic, and people were able to get creative and find opportunities within the obstacles. And some people were able to elevate themselves 2, 3, 4 steps, in the social hierarchy of things by mastering finding opportunities within the obstacles. So I'm a big one for that. Now, here in California, I've been noticing a couple of trends, and this is where people that have been following the video for any length of time might start like bailing off the thing or whatever. But just this week, and I want to make sure I say it right, so I'm going to look at a website here real quick. California boardroom diversity law ruled unconstitutional by an LA judge. I want to hit this again. California boardroom diversity law ruled unconstitutional by LA judge. And this was a thing, it was signed into law in 2020. I remember hearing about this as I was leaving Suzuki, strangely enough. Now, if I can just be a little transparent with you, I've applied for work since leaving Suzuki. And even when I get the interview or the email or the phone call, um, I can tell you it doesn't go too much further than that. I haven't had a serious conversation about a job since leaving Suzuki. And I believe a lot of it has to do with what we're seeing here, this diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. And so I think what we're going to see here, and again, this is just me spitballing like I spitballed back at the beginning of 2020, back before the COVID pandemic really hit, right? I think people are beginning to wake up a little bit, and they're realizing, especially with this stuff that President Biden was doing with the Supreme Court. It's not, I'm not against the objective. How can I say this in a proper way without being truly offensive? I'm not against the objective of, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could hire a woman of color for this position? I'm not arguing with that. As an executive, I sat in boardrooms that had those conversations. I know what that's like to feel like that. I know what it's like to look around a room and go, okay, do any one of us want to step down? Because we really can't just keep putting 50-year-old white dudes in this room with us, because society's getting ticked. But the problem with a lot of this is who from a diverse background has pursued the steps and gotten the education and the experience required to excel at that specific position. Corporately, I made the technical training for boats and motorcycles and all that kind of stuff. How many girls do you know in high school right now that are actively pursuing a career in marine and automotive mechanics? Okay, so let's say 10. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Let's say 10. Out of that 10, how many of that 10 are going to actively work on the product or also train themselves up on all the technical aspects of making online training based on working on that product? See, therein lies kind of the problem that we're looking at. When you are Google and you're trying to hire someone for the autonomous car division to work on the training, you're not just hiring somebody to build a website. People go, oh, he's a webmaster, he knows what to do, right? You're not hiring someone just to build a website, and you're not hiring someone to rebuild the cars. You're hiring someone that is extremely well versed in how online learning components work within a website and has the knowledge and ability to work on the cars if need be, but understand everything that the subject matter expert is trying to share with them about making that content. So when you start having these conversations about, well, we really need to find a Puerto Rican gentleman to fill this position. We really need to find a Hispanic gentleman to fill this one. We really need an American Indian to fit here. We really need a woman of color here. And then with this law in 2020, it was really kind of bizarre because it was talking about sexual preferences and stuff like that, right? So it's like, if you're on a board of directors and there's 5 white dudes, somebody was going to have to go, whoa, I like naked dudes, if they're going to keep their job, right? Because a certain percentage of people on the board had to be of an alternative lifestyle. So it's not hard to see how that was ruled unconstitutional. But here's my point. I'm going down this rabbit trail, but here's my point. My point is, just as I saw the service industry needing training back in 2020, just as I saw sales having to protect their margins or run out of inventory, I'm also seeing that business in general and people in general, they're not down with this stuff. They're not okay with it. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this over the next year and a half, 2 years begin to unwind. And so I really have to start trying to put the building blocks in place to kind of understand what that means. Now, I don't consider myself an actual futurist. I have a friend that considers himself a futurist. I don't consider myself an actual futurist. But if I have to look at this, I have to say, how many people are going to get disgusted with the idea that they were either overlooked because they weren't a person of color, or they were promoted solely because they were a person of color and then wasn't given the proper support to find success. Here's my problem with the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion factor in our corporate world right now. And I see this a lot. So please, please, please don't get horribly offended. I'm just looking at what I see, and I'm just sharing what I've seen and what I believe is going to be some of the outcome of this. If you hire somebody based on a demographic, you're not doing that person a favor unless you support them with the tools needed to find success. And that's wherein I think a lot of these corporations really drop the ball. You know, great, you want to make your, I told you, I used to be on the inside of these boardrooms. I understand how some of these decisions get made, and I'm not angry about it. As angry as I could be about it, I'm not angry about it. What I'm angry at is how corporate America is trying to shortcut the whole situation. There are no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts to real success. So if your numbers are off, if you have done nothing but hire, support, and promote white males for 50 years of being open in business, and you know that you've got to add some diversity to your executive team, okay, add the diversity to your executive team, but train the people that you hire and give them the tools to find success. Here's what happens generally: 12 months, 14 months, 16 months into position, they're not getting the goals that you outlined at the beginning of the journey. And so now you're having these meetings and you're saying, well, we've got to put you on a results improvement program. We've got to put you on a 90-day probationary period. We've got to this, we've got to that. All you're doing is opening yourself up to more nonsense that you were trying to avoid in the first place 18 months ago. Let's just be frank. So what really needs to happen is you sit back and you go, hey, we were under the impression that you would have been able to this, and this, okay, because that's what the position entailed. We see that we had failed to make a really good needs assessment at that time. However, we'd like to invest in you and give you training and help you in this regard and get you the tools you need to find success. That's what needs to happen. If not, well, then you end up giving these people some kind of golden parachute. You pay them to do nothing, and you end up hiring someone else to do their job for them. And all that does is create resentment, not only for the people that are covering their butts, but for them too. They don't want to be in a position where they feel useless and get a paycheck. Nobody wants to feel useless and get a paycheck. So you're not doing anybody a favor, and we're not fixing any wrongs in our culture that are centuries old with the practices that are going on now. We need to invest in people. You know, when I got the job at Suzuki, one of the things that I had asked for was additional leadership training. I've been a lifelong student of leadership and communication. So when a state-funded course had come through, I asked, hey, can I take that leadership program? And they were like, that's weird. You're a certified leadership speaker. Why do you? I said, there's not a single course you can go to and not learn something. I'm all caught up on the work. My department's doing great. We're ahead of schedule on the project planner. I'd like to take the course. It's only 1 day a week for 10 weeks. I'd like to do it. And they let me do it. And then the results were pretty good. Not going to lie. The results were pretty good. So then we started sending different department heads to this type of course for the ongoing next 2 years or so. And that's my point. It's not insulting to someone in a position of leadership to offer them leadership training. It's not insulting for someone that is like a Six Sigma instructor to go take training on how to be productive and efficient. People that are into it are always down for more improvement, more self-improvement, more investing, more learning. And so it's not an insult. And in fact, it's kind of one of those expected things. So I kind of ranted on here a little bit, but that's where I'm at with things. I'm taking a look back at the posts I made over the last 2, 3 years. And as I look back at those posts, I'm thankful for the internet for being that great record keeper, because then I can go back and go, I nailed it. I nailed it. I nailed it. Oh, look, I nailed that too. And so when I'm seeing these indications coming up in my news feed, things especially like this rule by Governor Newsom getting kicked out, when the state tries to tell businesses who they need to have on their board of directors, the board of directors doesn't want to put up with that. At no point, like, everyone loves being woke for the marketing side of it. Everyone loves being woke for the marketing side of it. But when it comes to practice, nobody wants to give up their control and give it to the state or give it to another group. They just don't want to, right? It's just human nature is, it's fine for everyone else, but not for me. And then when you become one of the everyone else, you're like, whoa, 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 how did this happen? That's what this is an example of. And I think what we're going to see over the next, again, 14, 16, 18 months, is we're going to start to see a lot of these policies start to walk back. We're going to see a lot of opportunities. Here's a kicker for you folks. Owning Mañana no Más, one of the services I provide is communication and leadership training. I really think I'm going to see an increase in requests for training and consulting and coaching with people that have gotten positions through diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. We can't take a look at diversity, equity, and inclusion and look at it as just a positive or a negative. It has the potential for either. And so you'll have a lot of people in my position that get angry, that get resentful, so-and-so stealing my job. Well, here's the deal. If I can't get a job as an executive because of how I look, I don't want to work for the company that made that decision that way anyway. And it's pretty simple. But as a contractor, I could definitely work for that company and help train up the staff that they hired instead of me and get that person more up to speed. It's out there. Have yourselves a great day. Like I said, I know I did this one different. I hope that it took on LinkedIn. If not, I've got the replay. I might load this up later and put it up as a replay. Folks, have a great day. And I don't know that I'll be going live every day this week. I may just break it down to 2 or 3 days a week moving forward because I got a lot of stuff to do. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.